Hey, good Monday morning after the Super Bowl. Everyone wipe the, sleep out of your eyes. Should be a national holiday. Can we just change the dang rule, Seth? Max? Can we change the rule?
We should change the
rule.
rule.
More people celebrate the Super Bowl than President's Day. Seriously. Why can't we have this be a national holiday where we don't have to work? I mean, I would still probably have to work.
No, we would still be.
But I'm just saying, this should be no postal service, no banks should be open. Business should be at a standstill. The stock market should take the day off because everyone today is low productivity, trying to figure out how much food they ate yesterday, how much money they won/lost because of the Super Bowl. Fantastic stuff. All right, well, my name's Justin Rose, for those of you who are first-time watchers. We do this every week. It's our Monday weekly sports chat. I got a little dressed up for y'all today because I thought that'd be appropriate. Wearing the wrong colors, apparently. Well, this is kind of
no, it's
navy.
You know what? It's very spring-like. That's a very spring-like
Well,
outfit.
I did see a robin on my run the other day. That poor thing came way back too soon. Like, it's going to be in for a rude awakening when it gets to, 12 degrees this week.
Yeah.
I'm going to Florida tomorrow, so.
Oh, look at you. Getting out of here.
Oh, yeah, I had to drop that little nugget.
Yeah, I'll be in Florida in 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah? Spring training?
3 weeks. 3 weeks. I'll make a visit to Boston Red Sox spring training.
Okay.
While I'm down there. They're close to my grandpa's place, so Lakeland's about 3 hours away. Too far to drive. I went last year.
Yeah. No, I'm going down to Bradenton. Visit the old family.
Oh, that's fun.
We're going to have some fun. All right, what we're going to do is have a lot of fun in the next hour. We'll be talking everything from the Super Bowl, the commercials, the game itself, Cam Newton's antics after the game, Peyton Manning dropping the Budweiser thing twice.
I missed that. I've only heard about that. I wasn't.
What were you doing last night?
Once the game was over, I kind of just went to bed. It was a long night.
Yeah.
But it was a good game. It was a good game, that's for sure. Good.
Yeah, I would disagree with you at 1,000%. And I think a lot of people would say that it was not a good game.
It wasn't a fun game to watch, but it was a good game.
No.
Whoever says defense doesn't win Super Bowls is just
10 of the last 12 times the number one ranked defense has played in the Super Bowl. They won it. They should have won it last year.
And I was told
Seattle.
I had the Panthers scoring 5 touchdowns in that game. Boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong.
Cam Newton certainly didn't have the type of day he would have liked or hoped. To catch you up to speed, if you want to get involved in the conversation, which is what we're here for, you can do that by calling us, 248-356-0077, 248-356-0077. You can also tweet at me, JRose, WXYZ, or Max White, WXYZ.
Very simple Twitter handles.
Very simple. Or you can just hit up the station's account, WXYZ Detroit. Also, if you leave a note underneath the Sports Webcast webpage that you're watching this on, Max will be able to get to that as well. So we're going to talk about Super Bowl for the first half an hour of the show. I want to talk about the commercials because I thought some of them were really good and I thought some of them were really bad. And I also want to talk about the game itself. So anything you have in those two topics, bring it on. In the 1 o'clock hour, we're going to have Drew Hallett, who writes for MGO Blog, big Michigan Wolverine supporter. Lives out in California now. He's always watching and involved. And if you're a Michigan fan, which I know that a lot of you are, you definitely know what MGO Blog is. It's a really fantastic website with tons of breakdowns of Michigan athletics, football, basketball, all the whole kit and caboodle. So he'll be joining us for the first time since we've done this show. So I'm looking forward to having some dialogue with him about the Michigan State game from Saturday. Just sat down with John Beeline for our weekly one-on-one. We'll get to this. Remind me the Michigan State shirt. Just say the Michigan State shirt.
Okay.
At the 1 o'clock hour when we get to it. All right, but let's start with the Super Bowl because I think that's what everyone at least is still talking about at this particular juncture in time. Throw a question out there. Overall, what would you rate this year's Super Bowl? Super Bowl 50 on a scale of 1 to 10. Give me a number and why. Because, look, I don't remember a lot of Super Bowls, and I'm sure people in Detroit are probably the same because
we're Lions fans.
We're Lions fans, and when your team's not in the Super Bowl, it's not like you remember the Super Bowls for what they were. And I just kind of, this Super Bowl is meh, but most Super Bowls for me are meh. I mean,
yeah, the hype is always better than
last year's game was so much better than this year's game. I think everyone out there is going to be able to agree with that because you kind of like, whatever with the game itself yesterday. Look, I like defense. I like defensive battles. I like the struggle that defenses cause. Cam Newton clearly frustrated by that. I mean, 6 turnovers in the game.
Yeah.
Not a very good game for either side. But I don't know. What do you rate it? What would you give it?
I don't know. You know it? I would probably give it a 6. I'd put it above a 5, but not by much. Just because it is the Super Bowl. The defense was strong to play. I mean, it was bad to watch, but it was fun watching the defense and fun watching Von Miller play because that guy is really good.
Yeah.
It was an interesting game. Like I said, I mean, defense dominated. That's the only way you can put it. Like you said, 6 turnovers. I mean, the winning team. I don't think they were talking near the end of the broadcast. Was it the winning team? It had never happened where the winning Super Bowl team had not scored a touchdown on offense until with 4 minutes left in the game.
Right.
The Broncos finally scored an offensive touchdown.
Yeah, but it was so. I thought that the thing that, if you didn't like the flow of the game, and that's what John Bielan actually told me, goes, there's no flow to that game. I couldn't watch that game. I didn't enjoy watching it because there wasn't. But with that being said, one thing I liked about that game is if there would have been that one play. That's what kept me hanging on. It's 10-16. Carolina had the ball. I go, this is it. This is that Super Bowl moment that you remember. This is when Cam Newton scampers out of the pocket and finds a guy deep down the field, and that's that one huge play. Yeah, and that's and we did see it. We did see it. It was just for the Denver Broncos when Von Miller forced the fumble, and the Broncos recovered it and were able to score a couple plays later.
Yeah.
I wanted him to kick a field goal because then if Denver would have gone down, or if it would have been 23-10, and if Carolina would have gotten the ball back and kicked a field goal, 3-3, I would have won my squares. That's how I started watching this game towards the end. I was like, how can I get to the mathematical formula to get to my squares?
If you don't have a vested interest in the Super Bowl team-wise, isn't that the only reason you watch the Super Bowl? Or one of the few?
Well,
you watch for the commercials,
it's
for
a
the
national
gambling.
holiday. It's a national event. It's a party. It's. I'm sure that people out there went and did some great things. If you have any great stories, I'd love to hear from you. 248
good Super Bowl stories.
356-0077. Anybody in your party overindulge or?
That definitely happened.
I'd like to hear a story
Super
or
Bowl
two.
Sunday. There's some people dragging.
They didn't have a hockey game last night to talk about.
Well,
I'm
it
really
was
bummed.
Super Bowl Sunday. I know. You don't want to have a hockey game on Super Bowl Sunday.
I didn't. I said I didn't want to, but.
What would you rate it? You didn't give your rating.
Well, it's because I got to give the people a tease. I can't just,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
When I think of last night's Super Bowl, I had a good time at the party that I went to for the first half, but I drove home at halftime, so I wasn't really vested in a big party. A lot of that has to do with your overall enjoyment of the event, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're sitting at home by yourself or with your girlfriend or your wife or fiance and your dog, they're going to have a different experience than if you go to a party with 15, 20 people. You're going to have a different experience if you go to a bar that's really invested in the game. So it kind of varies because I think a lot of people, as far as the game itself was like a 4. I mean, it wasn't the worst game I've ever seen. It wasn't I think somebody tweeted halfway through, this Titans-Jaguars Super Bowl is really exciting, or something like that, kind of mocking the inability for both teams to move the ball. I mean, the Broncos had less than 200 yards total offense for the game, and they won.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Turnovers, man. Turnovers and defense.
Turnovers will kill you.
We got a couple questions from Troy here. He said, do you think Peyton Manning should retire and leave on top? And then do you think the Lions should focus on defense and win the Denver? Maybe he means win like Denver.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Peyton Manning, there's probably no chance that he comes back. I mean, I would put that at a 99%. Because think about it. You just win your 200th career game. You win the Super Bowl. You're not the MVP, but, everyone still thinks of him as the MVP a little bit for what he's done. He's 39 years old. He's going to be 40 next year. He physically doesn't have the tools to do it anymore. I'm glad he didn't make the announcement last night, because if you make that announcement last night, I think it's in poor taste to the team accomplishment. You weren't even the MVP. So you can't take the spotlight from Von Miller and say, I'm retiring and I'm riding off into the sunset. The sheriff is done. All of a sudden, everyone else on the Broncos is like, well, what about our accomplishment of winning the Super Bowl? You didn't really do anything. You managed the game. So I think that was a really smart move of him not to say anything. But the chances of him coming back are slim to none. I mean, if he does come back, I think that hurts Denver more than it helps Denver. Brock Osweiler's been waiting in the wings. He started 7 games this year. He won a lot of those games for you. What did they go, 5-2 when he started?
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, he helped get them to where they are.
He helped get them to where they are.
With the defense, of course.
Well, of course, the defense was everything in that. I mean, it was 3rd and 9 with like 4 minutes to go, and they just run the football, and they go, huh, okay, try to beat us. You can't do it. So I like that, but I think that that yesterday's Super Bowl game-wise was about a 4. As far as what the Lions need to do, I mean, that's a great localization of the question. The Lions need to do a lot of stuff, but they have to build off the cornerstones that they have at their defensive positions. You have Darius Slay, Ziggy Ansah, and sorry, I'm thinking of the draft too.
Yeah.
And you have to hope that DeAndre Levy comes back and there's the staple of your 3, sections of the defense. Front line, Ziggy. Middle, Levy. Back end, Slay. Find pieces to go around them in the draft, in free agency. Find stuff to make that.
You got to build. You
got to build off of those things.
You have your
anchors.
Legos, you have your bottom block pieces, but then you have to get the other pieces you need.
And that's where because you can't ask me to name one more person on the Broncos defense besides the Aqib Talib, Von Miller,
and
DeMarcus Ware. Right? Those are the 3 that I know. So there's your defensive end, there's your linebacker, and there's your back end guy. Okay, well, if the Lions want to have any sort of success like that, they already have the 3 names. Those guys have to continue to get better. I mean, we've seen glimpses from Ziggy and from Slay as far as their potential, but that doesn't mean they're ready to go out there and I mean, I think if Darius Slay commits 3 penalties, 2 of them are personal fouls in the first half, the Lions don't win that game. You got to find pieces around it. You got to hope that Levy comes back from his injury better than ever. And then you got to complement them with some players that can actually play around them.
We got a question from Graham here. He said, "Justin, enjoyed your feature podcast with Adam. That was a good podcast.
Thanks.
Detroit Sports Podcast. Adam
Hope you all learned a little bit about myself."
Do you think Von Miller is the best player in the NFL?
That's such a trick question.
I would still pick. Well,
but is he the best linebacker in the NFL? Just for debate. I'm not going to say he's the best player in the NFL because his skill set is so much different than what an Antonio Brown or a Le'Veon Bell or Ben Roethlisberger.
Let's phrase it this way:
if you're 3 names,
if you're building a defense from scratch and you can pick a player to start with, are you picking like a Von Miller, a J.J. Watt, or are you going with like a Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, or any linebacker?
No, I mean, if you're asking me that question that way, he's definitely in the discussion. I'm not going to sit here today and say absolutely without a doubt. But then again, I wouldn't sit here and absolutely say I'm going to start with Cam Newton as my quarterback if I'm starting a team.
Yeah.
Is he the best quarterback in the game? Well, this year he was pretty good.
I think Andrew Luck would be a good
this year he was the worst. So I don't know. He's a very good player. There's no doubt in my mind that Von Miller's, one of the best. But to start a team around him.
Another question from Mason. He said, thoughts on Cam Newton not diving for the ball. I missed that last night, and I saw it this morning. Why doesn't he dive on that ball?
That, to me, was one of the plays of the game that I was very much... when you are a quarterback with the size that Cam Newton is, with the... this guy's used to getting hit. He's used to running.
Built like a linebacker.
He's bigger than a linebacker. He's 6'6". He's a defensive end.
Yeah.
This guy is built to take hits. He's built to be in the thick of it. He's built to be in the trenches, if you will. They run the read option. If you're a quarterback, you're getting hit every other play with the read option. You're maybe getting hit every play with the read option. That's what the read option is supposed to do. Get the quarterback hit. So it's not like this guy shies away from contact. We're not talking about Peyton Manning, who when he sees somebody coming, just folds. Folds like a chair.
Yeah.
He's just down to the ground. I'm not getting hit. Because he's not built like Cam Newton is. He's, Peyton Manning's just tall.
He's been hit enough.
And he's been hit enough, and he knows why you got to get out of the way. But no, when I think of that play, I go, wow. Did he think? I don't want to defend him because I think that bar none, he should have just dove right in there and jumped on the ball. But did he think that his player was there? did he also think that maybe his arm was going forward? I mean, his arm was going forward. The ball was already out, but the arm was going. So I didn't know.
Whistle wasn't blown up. Come on, you got to play till the whistle blows.
Agreed. That's why I can't defend.
For those of you who haven't seen the play, basically what Cam Newton he drops back to pass.
He drops back to pass, goes back to throw it. Von Miller strips the ball out of his hand, so his arm goes forward, but the ball goes down.
Yeah.
And Cam looks, and there's an offensive lineman and defensive lineman on top of each other, and the ball's kind of right next to him. And he goes to dive and then pulls back.
He does the jump back, like
he goes, I'm not into that.
No,
and then more players in Denver ends up picking it up and runs to the 5-yard line. And the best is, go on any internet and type in the Cam Newton meme, because he's in the background of the Broncos celebrating on his knees, just kind of looking, going.
I'm sure. I mean, Cam Newton has had a hard time gaining some fans lately. I'm sure he didn't gain any fans last night between that play and that post-game press conference with his.
Well, I just did hear, and I can share this with the people. I did hear that one of the reasons he left the podium when he did is because in the basement there, they brought all the players to different segments where you could set up your cameras and reporters could go to. And the set right next to them was one of the Denver Bronco defenders. And he was saying, we wanted to jam the box, we wanted to force them to throw and make the quarterback beat us. And he heard that because he was right next to him. And it was kind of like, I don't think he was necessarily taunting him because he was sitting next to him. He was answering the question. Hey, what did you guys do to slow down this offense that led the league in scoring? Well, we would jam the box. We wanted to make the quarterback beat us over the top. He didn't say Cam Newton by name, but
he said their defensive scheme. That's what he said.
He said, but Cam was right next to that, and at that point, he's still hurt. He's still upset. I can see why he would be annoyed with being sitting. Now, that's on the NFL for putting them in close proximity to each other. I mean, you should put the teams in different spots because the atmosphere and the attitude for post-game interviews is going to be drastically different from both teams. They didn't both win, so why would you put happy-go-lucky people going, yeah, we beat them, we're so excited, I'm going to Disney World, right next to somebody who maybe played in his last game ever, or the last Super Bowl ever, or we never get back to play in a Super Bowl. So I thought that was pretty poorly timed for them.
You know what else we got to talk about? Always, probably more people watch the Super Bowl for this reason if we're going to go all-inclusive for everybody. The commercials.
The commercials.
What was your favorite commercial?
I liked the Jeep ad.
I didn't see that one.
The Jeep ad was the one where they were talking about like the history of Jeep and 4x4 and like we're 4x4 and we're here for you. That was a good one.
Christ, did you see it was in the first quarter near the beginning of the game, the Doritos commercial with the baby and the mom and like the baby's reaching for the Dorito inside her. Oh, that was a good one. And
I got John Beeline's favorite commercial.
We gonna wait until 1 o'clock hour?
I'm gonna wait until tonight, 6 o'clock. You're gonna have to watch for that one.
And if you missed some of the commercials, WXYZ.com has a list of the best and worst commercials.
Oh, do they?
Yes. Did you see?
What's the analysis from the crack web staff at WXYZ.com?
So this is actually the crack web staff at WXYZ.com. I always love that.
Well,
the Axe Find Your Magic was up there.
Yeah.
The Audi R8 Big Game commercial. The Bud Light Party, Amy Schumer. Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
Special appearance by I think Paul Rudd. Mm-hmm. And there's an extra with Ronda Rousey in it.
Really?
The Wiener Stampede for Heinz ketchup.
Yeah, that was really good.
And this is among the best.
Ooh, I disagree with this.
It creeps me out. The puppy monkey baby. Did you see the?
Yeah, puppy monkey baby.
Oh man, that's
puppy monkey baby.
Like that's something you have nightmares
about.
Puppy
Monkey baby. Casey Hollins, our weekend sports anchor, loved puppy monkey baby.
That creeped me out, man.
I did not like this Audi Commander. That's
you
the
didn't?
first one up here. I thought that was a little weird. Yeah, that was a little weird. I didn't like that one. Find Your Magic was good.
Going back to also, I tweeted out earlier when we were talking about how would you rate the Super Bowl on a scale from 1 to 10. I just lost it here. Mr. S, he got back and said number 1. So I don't know if he means number 1 Super Bowl or he would give
Who?
it a 1. Mr. S, he
Oh,
tweeted back
okay.
at us.
Yeah.
And Al Biggs said he would rate it a 7. That's pretty high.
Why? Give me some feedback on that.
Al,
that
if you're
high
watching,
rating.
tell us why.
Yeah, Al Biggs. I'm gonna favorite that one. I want to hear why so high. Because maybe I'm missing something. I mean, maybe
Oh, this is another one. Someone got back. Someone on a question got to us. Priscilla, liking the vest. Justin says you're looking very handsome today.
Oh, hi.
She
What's
said
up,
she
girl?
hated the Super Bowl babies commercial because no babies will be born because of the Lions. That was a good commercial. If they were really all Super Bowl babies, and I'm sure some of them probably were, because it's easy just to put out a call on social media.
Yeah.
Hey, was your kid born because of a Super Bowl victory?
Yeah.
That was a good one. Like Super
thought
Bowl.
that was
They had
kinda cute.
Super Bowl babies like 1967, and then
Yeah.
there was the Seahawks from 2014, and that was a good one.
I
They
thought
did a
that was
job
pretty
with
good.
that. Yeah, I'm always a fan of. I know Seth Meyers will not be a fan of this, but I'm always a fan of the Budweiser Macro Brew commercials.
I liked it.
Because for me, I like, I'm not a big craft beer guy like a lot of people are in the Metro Detroit area. I love myself a nice cold Budweiser.
Yeah.
So when they're like, yeah, we don't need fruit in our cups, and he flicks the fruit out of it, or
It's not for everyone.
it's not for everyone.
I don't know. This is a somber day in a sense because football season is now over. I mean, NFL season's done. Now we're turning our attention to the incessant talk about the combine and pro days, all leading up to the draft in early May. And I don't know. I like that football's over because you kind of get doing what we do is it's 7 months of football. We've been talking about football since July.
Yeah.
And I'm done. I'm tired of it. I'm ready to shut down and focus on some other things. Baseball's coming up. Basketball's
Pitchers and
here.
catchers report in 10 days.
Yeah, next Thursday down in 10
Bradenton.
days.
And
so,
now we got NHL for me as a big NHL fan. Now we got Sunday afternoon NHL
well,
hockey.
you got to break it down. Here's your sports calendar until football again, and this is how fast it goes. Pitchers and catchers next week. Then you have the March Madness tournament, which is fantastic, and everyone gets involved with that because
It's like a
everyone likes to fill
month-long
out the
Super Bowl, really.
Month-long Super Bowl. It's great. 4 weekends, including conference tournaments of just fantastic basketball. Then you're done with that, and you have opening day right after that. So then you just right into it.
Baseball season.
Baseball season starts, and then we get a little breather because it's the summertime, June, July, get to enjoy ourselves.
Everybody's happy.
And then all of a sudden we're going to training camp. But mix in the draft in May.
I was gonna say, you're
mix
missing
in
some
rookie
stuff, yeah.
OTAs, rookie mini camp, training camp in the spring, fall football for Michigan and Michigan State. It never stops. It never stops. It never will.
But that's the beauty of living in Detroit.
Yeah.
If you're a sports fan.
Yeah.
If you think about living in a city that
the
only
best
has
sports town in the country.
one sport or two sports.
Give me a reason why Detroit's not the number one sports town in the country.
I said, Tom Lydon, it was announced around this time last year, former sports director Tom Lydon was leaving to go to Boston. And I remember posting a little homage to TL.
TL.
He's going to, in my opinion, the second best sports city in the country. I just, and there's always
They don't
gonna
have
be
the
that
college
argument.
athletics in the city of Boston to
Nope.
compete with what we have here in Detroit, and that's why you lose. Okay, 1 o'clock hour. We're going to switch gears now. We're going to talk about Michigan basketball, Michigan State basketball. They played for the only time over the weekend. And so in order to kick this conversation off correctly, I have to bring in Drew Hallett, who writes for, I said it, misspoke earlier, he writes for Maize and Brew.
Oh,
The
not
other
MGO blog.
Not
Okay.
MGO blog. Maize and Brew. I believe that is I don't know. Let's get him on the line and talk to him right now. Hopefully this doesn't blow my ear
I
up.
hope not too.
All right. Drew, my friend, how are you?
Doing well. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well. Everyone here and everything good and stuff like that? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Perfect. Hey, man, so obviously Saturday's game probably not exactly what the Wolverines were hoping for.
I think that's pretty safe to say. No, yeah, that probably went about as poorly as you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, the weekend as a whole for Michigan, too. I mean, Friday night you had the hockey game down at the Joe. Michigan State gets away with that one. Saturday the game. Definitely, the final score was not indicative of how much Michigan State is ahead of Michigan at the curve right now. When you break this game down and when you write about this game, what's the first thing that you wrote about?
Well, I'm in the process of writing it right now, actually. I didn't have a chance to write it over the weekend just because of the Super Bowl on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing that comes to mind is just, I mean, at this point, there's not even so much to break down from the game. It's just looking at what a missed opportunity this was for Michigan this past week. Heading into this week, they had a very shiny record, a very good record. They were 17-5, 7-2 in the Big Ten. But there still were a lot of questions about Michigan. They got a lot of wins against, kind of a soft schedule. And, they did have the Maryland win earlier on, which was good. But, they, had struggled against top 25 teams. You go back to the, Xavier loss, or the SMU loss, or the Purdue loss, and a lot of those losses were, all those losses were by double digits. So there was a lot of questions about whether this Michigan team could, really compete with the top 25 and, really cement its status as a surefire NCAA tournament team. Because heading into this week, they were about a number 7 seed, and this was a good opportunity for them to get a quality win, to show that, this team is a good team and can be in the NCAA tournament. And this was an excellent opportunity because not only are they playing Indiana and Michigan State, they're getting both at home. And good teams win home games against other good teams. I mean, that's what you have to do. And to not only lose both of those games, but to not even be competitive in both of them, it's very discouraging for Michigan. And it's a big-time opportunity wasted because, obviously Michigan fans weren't happy with the results this past week. But, this Michigan team still is, right now, I think I've been looking at the different, bracketology roundups, and they seem to be around a bubble team right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the schedule's not going to get any easier. I mean, yes, they play at Minnesota this week coming up on Wednesday, but Minnesota hasn't won in the Big Ten, but road games are never easy.
Right.
But then you have home game against Purdue, at Ohio State, at Maryland, and then you close out the season at Wisconsin and home against Iowa. Those aren't easy games. They're going to, and Michigan needs to add a couple more wins, to their resume if they want to be a tournament team. So they let a really good opportunity go to waste, and now it's going to be a lot tougher for them to make the NCAA tournament.
Drew Hallett on the line with us from Maize and Brew, a great blog that you guys can check out. Michigan fans, of course, no strangers to visiting that website. But when I talked to Beeline this morning for our weekly one-on-one chat, I asked him, I said, look, your losses, they're not really that bad. And he said, no, they're not. And he thinks that Maryland and Texas will be top 40 RPI wins for them, top 50. He goes, we need a couple more of them. So on the flip side, while the schedule isn't an easy schedule, he said, that's not necessarily a bad thing because we know what we need to get. Think about if Michigan's in this situation where they have no quality games left. And then all of a sudden you're looking at this and how are we going to get in? We're just going to stockpile wins against bad teams. That's not really a recipe for success in the NCAA tournament. And Beeline even admitted today that starting now, every game's a tournament team or tournament game for his team. That can obviously help them as March Madness approaches.
Oh, and I totally agree with John Beeline on that. The difference, though, is it's not like Michigan just lost, to Indiana and Michigan State by, 1 or 2 points. So these were, close games. These were blowouts at home, not on the road, at home. And, you look at the Indiana game, the Hoosiers were up by as many as 27 in the second half before Michigan's reserves cut that down to 13 to make it look a lot better than it actually was. And then the Michigan State game, the Spartans were up by 30 with just under 3 minutes left. And it only, once again, it took, the reserve to come on and to really cut in that lead and make it look a 16-point deficit. But, I mean, it wasn't like Michigan was in this game and just lost these close games. That would be disappointing, but you would still think, okay, the Michigans, they're still a competitive team. They're a good team. They're still in good shape to, get some of these quality wins. The problem was that they got blown out, and it wasn't close at all. And that's not a good sign for a Michigan team that was at home when they now have to go and play these, difficult games against these quality teams, whether it be at home or on the road. And so the confidence that Michigan can go in there and win those games is definitely much lower now than it was before this week. And I think that's where the concern is. But I do agree that, every game at this point is pretty much a tournament. It's like a tournament game. Michigan's now in a position where it really needs to start winning and getting these quality wins. And they have to show that this last week was just, they got to just, try to learn from it, throw it aside, and hopefully bounce back. Every team has, weeks during the season where they don't perform as well. You look at Michigan State just a couple weeks ago. They had their 3-game losing streak, losing to Nebraska at home, which, was really a surprise to many people. But then they've come back and won 4 straight and looked really good doing it. So, Michigan just has to hope and, improve from this, learn from this, and hope that, this was just one of those downer weeks that it has, and that it has to bounce back and get ready because it's not going to get any easier, and they're going to need those wins.
Drew, I gotta ask you a very pointed, very pointed question here. Does anyone,
Sounds
Michigan fan, even care? I mean, obviously, Jim Harbaugh, they won the day with the recruiting thing. He's been in the news for so much, overshadowing anything else that really goes on at the university athletically, because football is the machine that it is in all universities across the board. But I see this, like, I was at the game on Saturday, I didn't feel like the fans cared that much that they were losing. Do you feel that sense? Do you hear, what do people, when they email you and when you get in conversations on Twitter, you have your diehards, of course, for basketball, but what's the general sense as Michigan basketball kind of hovers right here?
I don't know if I would say that they don't care as much as I would say that Michigan basketball fans, except for the diehards, they can be very fickle.
Okay.
I feel like whereas, Michigan fans are obviously, they're with the football team, they root for the football team, whether they're good or bad, they're always, very emotionally invested. I feel like they're not as emotionally invested when it comes to the basketball team. They obviously cared a great deal when Trey Burke was on campus and Nick Stauskas was on campus in Michigan, those from 2012 to 2014. They won 2 Big Ten championships and went to, back-to-back Elite Eights, went to the national championship game. They obviously cared a great deal then. But I feel like when it comes to basketball, when things aren't going as well, they're not as likely to stick around or, be as interested in what's happening. And I felt like with this past week, and I know you mentioned you were at the Michigan State game this week, but I definitely feel like the combination of Michigan losing to Indiana at home the way it did, with the National Signing Day, with Michigan having the signing of the stars and landing at a top 5 recruiting class and getting Rashawn Gary, the #1 recruit in the country, there was so much excitement about that Michigan fans were focusing, investing themselves in that news as opposed to, focusing on the bad with the basketball team and knowing that Michigan State was going to come in and probably was a bad matchup for Michigan and were concerned about what was going to happen. So I will say, though, that I do think Michigan basketball fans, except for the diehards, I'm not going to say it's all of them, but I do think just from a general standpoint, they can be fickle in terms of rooting for this team, especially when things get, that they don't go as well.
Yeah, I agree with that because the atmosphere in there is always interesting because they're all hyped up at the beginning of the game, and then Michigan State gets out to a hot start, and I know that you're down by 20 at home. That's not going to make a lot of people really cheer for you, but I don't know. It just seems that the passion for the basketball team right now is fickle. It could go either way. Because look at what Michigan State did last year, and I hate to use them as a counterpoint, but look at what UConn did a couple of years ago. They kind of just eked into the tournament as a 9-10 seed. It's possible to do it, and with the way Michigan plays, shooting the ball from outside, they just have to find defensive toughness, and they could put it together here in the last few weeks of the season. What's your prognostication, I guess, if you had to think Michigan was going to get in, and if they do, where do you think they are seated, or if they make the tournament at all?
It's so hard to tell right now because the giant cloud hanging over Michigan right now is when is Karis LeVert going to return?
Really soon, according to John this morning. He told me very soon. So I would maybe not Wednesday, but definitely I think that if he's that close, Purdue this Saturday would be the homecoming. Okay.
Because I feel like that is such an important part, and Karis LeVert is obviously a tremendous player. He's averaging 17, 5 and 5 right now, or he was before his injury, and not only was he putting up really good per game averages, he was one of the most efficient offensive players in the game. Obviously, he hasn't played against some of the Big Ten competition because he's been out, but I believe his offensive rating, which is I think 129.1, is about the second best in the country among players with a 24% usage rate. So in terms of go-to offensive players, he's been one of the most efficient players in the game. Mm-hmm. And to not have that kind of, all-American type player on your team is a huge loss. And sometimes I think that gets forgotten when you're discussing Michigan and what they're capable of. But the longer and longer, he's been out, it's been harder to really prognosticate in terms of how Michigan's going to do. But if he comes back, I think that's going to really help their offense because, obviously the defense is a huge problem, and anyone that's watched the last 2 games has seen that as Indiana and the Spartans just eviscerated their defense.
Yeah.
But even the offense is having issues, shooting. I mean, part of it, I think, is fatigue. With Karis LeVert out, they've only been able to really play 5 players at, for the spots 1 through 4, especially with their wings because they haven't really had the depth at wing that they thought they were going to have. Cam Chapman hasn't developed like they anticipated. They've tried DJ Wilson as a 4, but that isn't really working out.
Right.
So, they're pretty much playing just 4 guys, and so when you have that kind of fatigue with those guys playing the minutes that they have, but then you also have the fact that LeVert is such a good player in terms of penetrating into the paint and getting easier looks and forcing the defense to collapse on itself, that it allows, the shooters to get open on, on the perimeter for threes. That hasn't happened as much, especially against Indiana and Michigan State, who have more athletic, longer defenses. And when, Zach Irvin's really kind of the only player that can get into the paint and doesn't do it nearly as well as LeVert, that becomes a problem for the offense.
Mm-hmm.
They start, having stagnant movement on offense. They're jacking up shots on the perimeter, and it becomes a big problem. And that's why their offense has struggled as much as it has. But all in all, if LeVert comes back and he's healthy and he's able to contribute, I still think this team can make the NCAA tournament. Obviously, right now, it seems like they're going to be more of a bubble team than anything else. So if they do make it, it would probably be around maybe a 10 or 11 seed. But I do think this team can make the tournament. And like you said, this is not like a year where there's, a bunch of elite teams that stand out from the rest. There's a lot of parity in college basketball this year. And so if they make the team or they make the tournament, who knows? If they get together at the right time with the right rhythm, maybe they make a little bit of a run. But right now, it's looking no better than, a bubble team, the number 10 seed is what I'm thinking.
Drew C. Hallett is the Twitter handle. You can follow him on that wonderful service of 160 characters or less. Drew, thanks so much. You can also read him at maizeandbrew.com. That is a fantastic blog. We're going to have you back on again for sure because you're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to Michigan basketball, my friend. Enjoy yourself out there in the sunny West Coast.
I will do. Thank you very much for having me on, Justin.
All right, have a good one, my friend.
You too.
All right, there he is, Drew Hallett. Really good stuff, really good information
Yeah,
from him. I mean, and he's right. I think that most Michigan fans right now are kind of understanding that this team isn't where it wants to be. Obviously, look, and even if Karis LeVert comes back this week, they've got 7 games to go. That could take them 3 games to reinfuse him into the flow of the game.
Yeah,
look what happened when Denzel
happen right
Valentine
away.
came back. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's missed 6 weeks.
Yeah.
He's been out for a long time,
It's a
so
lot of
he's not
games.
just going to come back and be like, okay, 25-10, and everyone else is going to elevate their game. Maybe they do. I mean, it's possible. It just doesn't seem to be a trend that happens as much as they might want it to. So I don't know. I look at Michigan basketball, and if I look at this now, I mean, getting a win to just stop the losing right now against Minnesota on Wednesday at Minnesota is huge.
Well, I think
for this team.
that's a must-win game almost because then they play.
That would be a bad loss. Then they have no bad losses right now. That's
Yeah.
the one thing that Michigan has going for it.
But they also don't have a lot of good wins.
But at the same time, you can not having good wins can be forgiven. And having bad losses is the one thing.
Yeah.
That's the one strike that when they put the side-by-side comparisons down and say, this team's got this record, this team's got this record, but this team has this bad loss.
Yeah.
Then you go, oh, well, geez, if they can lose to them, they're not going to beat anybody in the tournament. Look, Michigan's fortune against top 50 RPI teams has been bad. They haven't played well, but they've been injured. So that's part of why you can't lose to Minnesota. You get a win at home against Purdue, and I think you go and you beat Ohio State because it's a rivalry game, and Ohio State's not really that good this year. They have the potential to beat you, but they could potentially win the next 3 and then go to Maryland, and that could be that game that would stamp them into getting into the tournament because Maryland right now is a team that everyone thinks can make a Final Four.
And they beat Maryland already.
They already beat them already. So if
Yep.
they can go on the road, LeVert will be 3 games or 2 games back into the mix. You win that game, and potentially you're moving on into the NCAA tournament, or at least the Big Ten tournament with a higher seed because they're 7-4 in conference play. They could be, or 7-5, excuse me. They could be 8, 9, and 5 when they play Maryland if they take care of their
And
business.
that's they've got a tough 4 games to end the schedule. Well, 2, but you start their last 4 games. The first one at Maryland, number 4 team right now. Then you got Northwestern at home, Wisconsin on the road, also a tough game.
You
Just
don't
because
win at
it's
the Kohl
Wisconsin
Center.
on the road.
Yeah, you don't win
And
there.
then you're home against a top 5 team in Iowa
Yeah.
right now.
So they have
things change.
They
but-
have opportunities to at least take a chance at it. So one thing I got to bring up is before we transfer from Michigan State for the last 15 minutes, because we do need to talk about how they're peaking and how they're going north with this whole thing. So Max, I walk into the Chrysler Center today for the atrium for our sit down with John Beeline, and we're all set up and we're waiting for Coach to come down, and this little kid comes in with his mom, and they're looking at the trophies and stuff that are out in the atrium
Yeah.
there, and he says, "Oh, can we look at the trophies?" I said, "Yeah, no problem. Take a look or whatever." So he's wearing his jacket, and Coach Beeline comes down, and I don't know who this woman was or who this son was. It's a public building; they can come in, whatever. We're set up in the atrium, and John goes over because Beeline is just a fantastic guy, and he shakes the mother's hand. "Hi, John Beeline," and he shakes the little kid's hand. The little kid immediately unzips his jacket and goes like this, wearing a Michigan State t-shirt right in front of the coach. And I'm going, ooh.
He did it on purpose, too. He totally did it on
But
purpose.
this kid's 6 years old.
He did
He's
it on
6 years
purpose.
old. So I don't even know if he knew who John Beeline was. But here's the best part of it. So John, he's not going to be like, "Get out of here, kid." He's like, "Well, they took advantage of us this weekend. We kind of they took care of us." And the little kid's response was, "Yeah, they won pretty big." And I was just like sitting there laughing, being like, "Oh God."
The kid's 6 years old. He knew what he was doing.
No
the
idea
whole
what he's
time.
doing right now. And I was
No, that kid.
I thought
knew
it
what
was
he
really,
doing.
really funny. Look, John handled it like a true professional. I mean, it was like,
that kid-
in your own house.
He
Like,
knew what he was
that's
doing. I don't care if you said that kid didn't know what he was doing. That kid knew what he was doing. You're 6 years old.
Trolling or rolling.
If you're going to unzip your jacket when the coach shows up to show your Michigan State jersey or shirt, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I thought that was really, really funny. But coming up later on today at 6 o'clock, I have my one-on-one. We talked about the Super Bowl, his favorite commercial, which is a really funny little tidbit. He also talked about losing to Michigan State and kind of where the program is. So make sure you check that out, Channel 7 at 6 o'clock today. All right, 15 minutes left in the show. We can welcome in your calls. Anything we talked about already, Super Bowl, Michigan, or we're going to transfer over and start talking about Michigan State. So 248-356-0077, 248-356-0077. Tweet me at JRoseWXYZ or Max White WXYZ as well. We'll get your questions or anything you want to talk about in the last 15 minutes simply before we wrap up for the day. Michigan State just new rankings come out, and they're 9th. They've moved up one spot after beating Michigan this past week. It's how they beat Michigan that I think, Michigan wasn't a ranked team, so they weren't going to get a huge boost for going on the road and beating them. But this Michigan State team is starting to look like the team that beat Kansas in the beginning of the season, that beat Louisville and Providence, Florida, Oakland. This is the team that's starting to show kind of where and how good they can be. Bryn Forbes is unbelievable from distance. Tom Izzo even admitted he looks like J.J. Redick. He's that type of shooter. He's shooting 60% in the past couple of games. I mean, this guy is so good from deep that if he continues to be rolling, they're going to be unbelievable to beat. Their defense is awesome. They're number one in the country. The thing I watched watching that Michigan game is Michigan was shooting so late in the shot clock because Michigan State was just shutting down everything they had early working on. That's a sign of a good defense is when you're under 10 seconds and you got to try to find your spot and you're at the ball at the top of the key and no one's really moving because you've already run through what you're trying to do. That's a sign of a good defense. They can be better at that. But, I mean, look, Michigan State, they're tied for 3rd in rebounds per game. They're 1st in assists. They share the ball well. They're 14th in points allowed. Total defense, they're up there. This team could be really, really special, Max, when it comes to to March.
What a game. Is it Brian Forbes or Bryn Forbes?
Bryn
Forbes, that's
Yeah.
what I thought. I mean, that guy just went off against Michigan. If there's a game you need to go off on, that's the game. In that game, I was worried, not worried for Michigan State, but that was, if it became a 3-point shooting contest, I thought Michigan would win that game.
Yeah.
Handedly. And
it
was a 3-point. It wasn't a 3-point shooting contest per se, but I mean, Michigan couldn't hit anything, and Michigan State was just hitting everything.
Yeah. No, and looking at Michigan State kind of the rest of the way, they've got a tough week this week at Purdue tomorrow, in Indiana at home on Sunday. I'm looking forward to going up to East Lansing for that game on Sunday. But, I mean, if you look at this, I mean, they're home versus Wisconsin, at Ohio State, Penn State, Rutgers, and Ohio State again. So they don't play another ranked opponent besides the two this week. If they can even go 1-1 this week, they have a real chance of entering the Big Ten tournament with just 5 losses. They would be 26-5, and you're going into your conference tournament as the probably 3 or 4 seed, if that's the case. So they have a real opportunity. I love that it's typical, prototypical Tom Izzo, where it starts and you suffer in January and you kind of find yourself a little bit, and then you start to kick it back into gear. I'm worried about this team peaking a little too early because of now this week could beat them back down a little bit, and that's not for the worst. Look, they're not going to win the Big Ten. They're 3 games behind Iowa, and I don't see Iowa losing 4 games the rest of the way.
They're not going to win the Big Ten in
regular season.
Yeah, I was going to say.
They're not going to win the Big Ten regular season. So Izzo's still playing with the rotation. He's still finding the ways to play guys. I mean, think about how crazy this sounds. Marvin Clark, by no means is Marvin Clark like the best player on Michigan State's team, but he was a big cog last year of them getting to the Final Four. I mean, he hit some big shots late in games, hit some big free throws late in the tournament games. He helped them get to the Final Four, and that type of experience can't be replaced. Homeboy's trying to get on the floor this year for 3 minutes a game. He's just not fitting in with what they have this year.
Well, and I just saw Joe Rexrode had tweeted out they don't know when Tum Tum Nairn will be back, but his role will likely be just a reserve role when he comes
Absolutely.
back. Yeah.
And you got Matt McQuaid playing as a freshman. He's getting that experience that Tum got last year, but he's the best lockdown defender that he could be. I thought it was interesting that, who said it yesterday? It was on the Suburban 47 Sports Cave.
Was it Rod or was it Rieger?
It was Rieger. Jeff Rieger from 97 Won the Ticket believes that Matt McQuaid can be like one of those players for Tom Izzo that's unbelievable his senior year, and I can buy into that, at least for right now.
And that's the thing, with Michigan State is those guys stay 4 years, so they have time to develop and grow into the players. That they may not be pro-worthy, but when they work together as a team, you go to the Final Four.
Yeah.
With they're almost a Detroit Pistons like of 2004. Everyone just works together.
I got a couple of tweets I got to get to. Heidi tweeted in, boring game, boring commercials, talking about the Super Bowl.
Very simple.
She didn't like it too much. Allison gets in, Super Bowl 50 was 4 commercials, sucked. Halftime show wasn't very good. # boring game. # face mask and penalties. What?
I didn't watch the halftime
and
show.
# missed ops. Favorite hashtag is missed ops.
Okay. How did you watch the halftime show?
No, I was driving home.
I just, I had Coldplay doesn't do it for me.
Coldplay, when they said that, I was like, I'm not going to watch that.
And then, Beyonce's great. I'm just not
a
a big Beyonce fan. So,
all the single ladies.
but apparently Bruno Mars made an appearance too.
Bruno Mars, yeah, he was there.
I heard that was the best part of the Super Bowl.
Anymore for me,
the
like
the halftime show. I mean,
think about how good it was when Justin Timberlake and NSYNC were out there with Janet Jackson. I know that was the year with the
Is that
exposure.
why it was so good?
But no, I
No,
don't
it
know.
was-
They
it
were
was good.
peaking. You had Britney Spears and you had all these great Coldplay.
I thought Bruno Mars a few years ago was good, and I'm not a big Bruno Mars fan. But
Bruno
he
Mars
was good.
appeals to everybody.
Yeah,
everybody likes Bruno Mars.
That's true.
Kids, adults,
he's a
old
likable
people.
guy.
Yeah, they're all.
He sings music that's a little adulty sometimes, but
it's still fun.
hides it that the kids
the
listen and
kids
sing
can.
along.
My 3-year-old niece loves Bruno. But yes, Super Bowl halftime show for me. I'd rather watch the commercials. That's kind of where I.
Here's some good news. Ex-Tiger Delman Young arrested in Miami.
For what?
According to I believe is it Catherine Slowcakis? I think she writes for. Hold on, I'll find it. He apparently Catherine Slonksness for Bless You Boys. Apparently he was. I just clicked on myself. He assaulted a hotel valet. Did you see the LaShawn McCoy news today?
Yeah, assaulted
three off-duty
police officers. Oh boy,
these guys, man, I don't get it. Why can't they stay out of trouble?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're millionaires. You don't need to get yourself in trouble. Do it the way Calvin Johnson has done it. If we're going to remember Calvin Johnson by anything, by the way, Terry Foster of now only 97 Won the Ticket has an exclusive report on their website that he will be announcing his retirement probably
sometime
this
week. Yeah, I mean, I'm over that. I've been saying for weeks now.
No, I mean, it's all now. It's more now. It's more of a matter of if, not when.
I think that it's
when, not if.
I think that it's better for the Lions if they let him if he retires. It helps them in the future. It does not help them next year per se, but it could, because they could go out and get a big wide receiver. I mean, or go in small wide receiver with the cap space that you'll get.
Can we
get $13 million.
Can we talk about this? The
What's
Lions are
this?
raising season ticket prices again. An almost 20% increase.
Color me
fans?
shocked.
How do fans get? I know Stoney, regular contributor on the 7 Sports Cave,
Sorry to sneeze.
gave up his season tickets after 20 years for next year because they raised ticket prices.
You know, why would it shock you?
It shocks me that it's the 3rd year in a row that they've done it, and they're raising prices by 20%.
Look, Michigan State just raised their season ticket prices by $5 a game.
For me, it's like.
So what's $5 a game?
For football?
$343 is what it costs you to get 7 home games at Michigan State.
So you only.
Season ticket. Now that's
So
the
it's-
lower or higher deck.
So what'd you say? 343.
343
So
divided
now
by
it's
7.
close to 3. It would be 378.
No. That's what it is now. They bumped it up to 343.
But it was only a $5 a ticket increase.
Yes.
That's not bad.
No, but that's still a raise.
20%. That's a huge raise.
That's because.
And with how nice your TV is, and how cheap the beer is, and your own bathroom, in NFL Red Zone, I don't think the NFL is going to last with people going to games.
No, people will still crave live
They will
sporting events.
still
And
go, but
it's getting a little ridiculous. Yes, I don't
know how families afford to take their kids to games anymore.
Families don't really go. When's the last time you went to a Lions game and saw a bunch of kids running around?
They have a whole kids zone section on either end zone, and they fill it because they sell games out. And it's filled with families. Families go to football games all the time. They do. Families of 4, dads and sons. They do.
I would say it's a much higher populated adult crowd. Obviously, kids aren't buying their own tickets, so.
Yeah.
But that's my point: is how many kids are really going? I don't know. All right. Well, I don't have any hockey stories this week, guys, to share with you. I'm really bummed about it. Get back on the ice next Sunday, my adult league, and maybe we'll have some bad story for you. Got to get But other than that, thanks for the tweets. As always, the comments we get from your emails help run the show. We'll be here next Monday, 12:30 to 1:30, talking
Red Wings?
Red Wings, probably.
Maybe. We're getting close to the trade deadline.
We are getting close to basketball All-Star game. Andre Drummond this weekend in Toronto.
Slam dunk contest.
Toronto. Dunk contest. We'll talk that.
Toronto.
But as always, appreciate you guys watching the webcast. We'll make sure we put this online if you want to share it with your friends. And we will be back in a week. Join me tonight, 6 o'clock, John Beeline one-on-one.
Yeah, find out his favorite commercial.
Find out his favorite commercial and what he really thinks about that Michigan State game from the weekend. He was pretty candid with me about it, so tune in for that. And I will see you all next week. Have a good one.